time to talk about the fences. It's time to discuss operations and expenses. It's time, it's really time to elevate small businesses. It's time for Joe to drop his knowledge. It's relentless. This rhyme of mine is getting a bit ridiculous. So here we go. We're live with Joe. Enjoy the show.
What is up, Fence fam? So good to be back with you guys. This is like 3 weeks in a row. I am loving it, and I hope you're loving it too. Coming to you live from the Expert Professional Wood Care Products Studios, Caleb, Ashley, and the crew, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys sponsoring the live broadcast. If you guys would like to find out more about the stainless steel or the expert professional wood care products, check out the link in the description below if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. So if you're listening to this on podcast, thank you. This is a recorded version of a live conversation that I host every Saturday. That's today, from 10 to 11 Central. I say 10 to 11. It's 10 until we get done chatting. Usually goes past 11. If you guys are listening on the podcast, we would love it if you would leave a review and a rating. It means a lot to me and the team. So without further ado, if you guys read the description, read the introduction, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And if you are on social medias anywhere, you know exactly who this is. So without further ado, let's bring up Brian with FWA. Brian, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing so well, so well. I appreciate you getting up early to come on the show.
Yeah, no, not at all, man. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. I feel like I'm on here with a legend myself.
Oh no, I don't. It's a Finch guy from Missouri. That's what I always tell folks. Like I don't, you know what I mean?
The expert.
It's always a weird feeling when you're talking with somebody, they say stuff like that. Because like I'm a guy with a YouTube show. I don't know. Anyway, Brian, thank you so much for coming on. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, man, glad to be here.
So, Brian, FWA, Fence Workers Association. What is it and what do you guys do?
Well, I mean, Fence Workers Association was developed obviously by fencers, and it's growing every day. I mean, there's more and more fencers getting involved, and it's great. I mean, in the past, I think it's strayed away a little bit, I think, over the last decade or so, and it wasn't as much represented by the fence industry as I felt it needed to be. Okay. And I just love that there's such a huge community behind it now. I mean, it's more than just an association. It's almost like a movement in a way that's going across the country. And I mean, I can't tell you. I wish I would have pulled up some and been ready for this. I got to pulled up and showed you some of the messages I get. Hey, we really appreciate what you're doing for the industry. It's great to see us represented. I finally feel like there's a place I can belong. And then even a couple of people when I run into them at some of the other events are like, hey, I didn't really quite feel comfortable, but we saw you guys in the FWA, and that's great. It just made me, it makes me feel like what I'm doing has a purpose.
Yeah, it gives it purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah. So FWA definitely, it's built to help the average fencer, not just a fencer that's been established for 10, 20 years, but anybody. I mean, let's face it, what we do is it's hard. It's hard work. I mean, and we like to, throw things around there like one truck chucks and trunk slammers. But let's face it, if anybody's crazy enough to want to go dig holes and get into our business, we need them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A comment on that chuck in the truck type thing is, I think one thing that I try to impress on people is at one time or another, someone's company was a chuck in a truck, right? Yep. It was a 2-man crew and a pickup truck. Maybe they had a big box store card, that sort of thing.
Yep.
That's 99.9% of the fence stories in the United States, right? Just because. So, with our company, Ozark Fence, just because we are what we are today doesn't mean in 1955 it was my granddad and his brother-in-law in a pickup truck, an old International half-ton pickup truck, and they were just building fence, Yeah. So I think it's important for everyone to remember where everyone starts somewhere, sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I started out as Chevy S10 pickup. I mean, I couldn't even fit. It was one of those step side ones where it actually was even worse. The bed didn't even go all the way out to the side, to where it was like restricted, I think, down to like 4.5 feet or something. And I used to have to stack the gates because they wouldn't even fit in the back across the top and stuff. So I remember, and the industry wouldn't be better off if your granddad wasn't in this, or if I wasn't in this, or, a lot of the people that we know that have these larger companies that are now employing 20, 25 people all started off as what they like to call trunk slammers and one truck. I never heard these phrases until I started getting into this stuff. But again, I think that, if we're going to improve and strengthen our industry, we have to get rid of stuff like that. We need to take that guy and say, you know what, I agree. He's probably never going to want to come work for us. He's going to want to start his own company, but we all know how this gets handed down generally. I mean, you come from a long line of fencers. I mean, I grew up learning how to drive a truck on a construction site for fencing, driving a fence truck and putting nuts and bolts together for 50 cents a box for my uncle's fence company. And that's how a lot of it is. Would I want to go work for my uncle? Absolutely not. Did I do it then and start my own and hire people or even go work for another company? Absolutely. So we don't necessarily need that guy to come work for us, but we need him to train his nephew, his son, his brother, whoever that says, you know what, screw you, Dad. I don't want to work for you. I'm going to go work for Joe or Brian.
Sure.
how we get more fencers in our industry. And
right.
you have to embrace those guys and bring them in and say, okay, we agree. You're not doing it right. All of us as a whole, but it doesn't mean we can't show them how to dig a hole properly or teach them how to use a string line and turn them into a fence company.
Well, I think that's an important point, is that because listen, we're all in these fence Facebook groups, right? And what Mark Olson call it, the Zoom gang or something like that, to where Zoom crew. That's right, where they love to pick apart other people's work. It's like, guys, in let's be honest, some of it is very nitpicky. Where I look at it, and I'm like, would we have done it differently? Sure, but we're not ripping out the fence to fix it, right? We're going to go make some changes anyway. But rather than snap the picture and post it on socials and then rip them apart, how much harder would it be to reach out and say, hey, I saw some work. Are you open to some constructive criticism? Can I try to teach you that? Can we try to partner up and I show you a thing or two about it? More effort, sure, but better industry as an end result.
Yep.
Right. I mean, if you tear these guys down and make them feel like, they're not welcome, then they leave. How's the fence industry any better for that?
Yeah. And every time a guy grabs I feel like every time, and this is how it felt like every time anybody grabbed a pair of postal diggers and bought a wheelbarrow, we tried to kick them out of the industry. And I'm like, we have a shortage of people right now. There's a shortage.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's only going to get worse, and I think that's how we're going to improve the industry, is to give them some resources as well. And not just that, the forums. I mean, how many people started off with just, I don't know if we can even find an Office Max anymore, but remember back when they used to have Office Depots and Office Maxes, but we would just go buy the estimate sheets and maybe write our name at the top or stamp our name at the top, and there'd be no terms in there. There'd be nothing protecting us or them from, this is before we learned that we got to write terms and conditions on there if we hit something or landscape, or if we mess up anything that's has nothing to do with us, we're not liable. So we don't just not get paid. So that kind of stuff that they need guidance on, and how, that they need to start putting what side the wire is on, if it's chain link or things like that, or they're not just replacing it. And like you said, it has to be built per an industry standard. Doesn't mean you necessarily always have to build it per what this person had in their mind. It's just
Well, and that's a fair point too, is these standards, it seems like they vary regionally too. Some standard. Now, there are nationwide standards. Totally understand that. But in terms of like styling, so someone will say, hey, I saw, the big discussion I see off and on is wood fence, finish side out versus in.
Right.
Two very entrenched camps on this. If you believe one way is right, you definitely believe the other way is wrong. Yep. And it's going to vary regionally. So when you see someone's picture up that shows the finish side the other way, they're not wrong. That's just how it's done in that area, right? Or gate swinging in versus out. Some guys, gates only swing in, because why would you ever swing a gate out? In our area, 90% of the gates swing out, unless there's a really good reason for it to swing in. I think that's worth remembering also, is that just because this is the way it's done in your area doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it needs to be done everywhere. Yeah.
And like we discussed, I mean, there's some areas where pounding post is great, and there's some areas where you can only pound down 6-8 inches before your pneumatic equipment or whatever just stops, or it just starts destroying the post. There's nothing you can do about it. So same thing. I mean, some areas you have to mix concrete. It's just it's just the people in the area would just freak out. It's just been like that for so long. So we got to do that. But I mean, but there's areas where, I agree, it would be great just to pound them or maybe even, throw a little water in, but they got a lot of moisture in the ground. We don't have any moisture out here, or maybe some areas have too much moisture. It really varies. And I think we talked about that. It's really hard to have a standard from the ground down. Easy to go ground up. And like you said, we could find it where, hey, someone had the tension band was 1 diamond too high. And like you said, would we go back and change it? No, we saw it too.
Sure. And does it affect the function of the fence? No. Absolutely not. Yeah. Like this fence, in this example, if it's a chain link fence, it's going to stand no matter whether that tension band's a diamond high or not. It just is what it is. But the Zoom crew is strong sometimes. But I think it's worth noting that our industry gets better through constructive criticism. Constructive being the key term here. Like if we can get better together, then so I saw there was a post yesterday, or I saw it yesterday, just comparing one person's work to another's, like two neighbors or something.
Yeah.
And one person's comment was, well, which fence is yours? Because I can see things on either one of them that are different than how I do it. So which one are you, And then another guy said, this is the reason I don't post pictures anymore, is because I could think I did a slam dunk job. My customer is over the moon. They paid me on the spot, but somebody's going to say, oh, you hinge your gate on that side? Well, that's not, I would never charge my customers for that. Really?
Yeah, you put 3 hinges on there. It only needed 2. This is ridiculous. I'm like, well, you put an extra hinge. Who cares?
It or a wheel. Heaven forbid you put a wheel on a gate.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. You might get out of the fence business if they find out about that wheel on the swing gate, right?
Exactly. And guys, this is the point, right? Like, we don't need to drive people away from the industry as a whole. And I think we can bring this conversation back around to the FWA under that premise is different options for different contractors, right? That there are multiple associations out there, and they all focus on different areas, right? But sometimes you get a contractor that doesn't feel comfortable in one or the other, so they're looking for a home, right? They're looking for an association that aligns with their point of view or their standards or what have you.
Yeah.
So what I've seen you post, and if you're on socials at all, you've seen you post, right? So if what I've learned or what I've observed is you're trying to create that place for someone that doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't feel welcome in one of these other areas. Would that be accurate?
I think it is, but at the same time, I don't feel that we're the same as everybody else. I don't think I don't think that we're even our missions, if you were to go read mission statements or do something like that, I think we align with most of the associations, 99% of it. But the problem is that 1% that we don't align is such a big deal that it has to, that we have to exist. Otherwise, I think the manufacturers and suppliers, which is great, they'll take over these other associations to the point where we forget about that small fence guy, and we're not protecting those guys. And I think that it is important that somebody does see the other side of it and say, okay, the regulations and the standards and stuff have to fit before we start choking down our fence companies to the point where we're no better than the pool industry or something, where it's to the point where you can't build a fence without 3 people that have never built fence walking onto your job site telling you how you're doing it wrong. And that happens quick. I know, because I come from one of those areas. So
this was a conversation we got into before we started the show, and it was this is a good one.
So I think that it's important to have somebody representing both sides and saying, hey, you know what, I'm not a fence consumer association. And I think for us associations, we have to decide, are we representing the fence industry or the fence consumers? Because we have consumer protection agencies. We have government agencies that protect the consumers. Not that that's not important, but I don't think that's why somebody would pay an association or pay us or join us to go represent their customers. You're looking for us to be there and try to make decisions, after educated from taking the input from everybody in our association that would benefit the industry and not necessarily the consumer as much as them. And I think that's where I come into play. I'm like, hey, we need to protect the fence companies, against things like overregulation and the bureaucracy and things like that. And at the same time, give them, give them a place, like you said, a place to belong, and give them some free information, some free training, some free forums. If there is going to be regulations and standards that have to be met and followed across the country, I'm all for the standards as long as they are practical and we can actually use them every day. But I don't want to create something that some government's just going to use against us either. And make us follow some standard that just flat out can't be built in our area. Reasonably, without costing a fortune. So, and giving them the forums, things like teaching them how to do the drawings better, how to do their quotes better, under some HR resources, that making them understand the importance of not just paying your best friend out of your checking account with no workers' comp and no insurance. Next thing you know, at the end of the year, you're paying his taxes and you don't realize it. And so many companies come in and they're in business for a year until tax time, or they don't file taxes for a couple of years. And they end up owing, the state use tax. They end up owing employment tax. They haven't filed any of this. They don't have any workers' comp. They don't have all this. All this comes crashing down on them. You know what these guys do? They go into hiding. And
or the work comp. This is a big thing. They don't pay work comp because in the beginning it's just them. And states vary on this, right? But in Missouri, the owner of the company doesn't have to be covered by workman's comp. So they're an owner. One thing I've seen is, so maybe the sons come into the business and they're owners.
Yep.
And so now none of the owners have to be covered under work comp. Well, then they bring on a helper.
Yep.
Well, the cost is so much for that one person. Like, we'll get it later. This goes on for a while.
Yep.
Until someone gets hurt.
Yep.
And that's when the state steps in, or whomever steps in, and says, wait a minute. So you've been operating how long without it? And and where things get sticky, at least in Missouri, is you're still technically supposed to file for it, but then you file for an exemption, right?
Yep.
You say, hey, here we are. We know we're supposed to have it. Here's our exemption status. But a lot of guys just won't even get it. It won't even, you know what I mean? They won't go through the exemption process. And that's, in our area, that's what's led to several guys, the government coming down on them is somebody gets hurt, and which is bound to happen. I mean, it doesn't matter how safe you are. The processes and standards and everything you have in place, people are human. And sometimes it's a mistake done by somebody else entirely, right?
Yeah.
That still ends up with your person getting hurt. And then a claim gets filed. And then so generally what happens is you take them to urgent care or wherever to get fixed. And then someone says, oh, okay, so you did this while you're at work? I'm like, oh, yeah. And then the nurse checks the work comp box. She says, okay, we'll start your workman's comp claim for you. Or we'll notify whomever, that sort of thing. And then the ball gets rolling before anybody knows it is. And then they're stuck.
Yeah.
And here's the problem, Brian. So regardless of the scenario, so the taxes scenario you laid out, the work comp scenario I laid out, they end up leaving the industry altogether.
Yep.
Like they don't come back.
Yep.
So because there's a lot of pride in this, right? I'm not going to go work for somebody else when I've worked for myself.
Right.
This person was probably a craftsman when they started. That's why they went on their own. They said, I feel like the value I'm bringing to this organization isn't commiserate with what I'm getting paid, right? Because I do great work, I do fast work, I do whatever it is. They go out on their own. So they're really good at what they do, at being a craftsman. But then through these series of unfortunate circumstances, something comes down and they lose their business. Well, we don't get that craftsman back.
Nope.
The craftsman goes off to another associated trade, right? Nope. Or a roof. Here locally, they go become roofers. And there's good money in roofing, bro. Yep. So anyway, we lose them. And we lose that skill. And to your point earlier, we are in a skill shortage. We are in a just workforce shortage at the moment. And everyone is. I don't want it to sound like it's just us, but we need to do everything we can to protect these folks, to give them the education that they can protect themselves, I think is the point.
Yeah, and we got to figure out how to make them not look like a threat to our industry, and that's how sometimes they look at them like, well, these guys are starting off, they're starting their own company and things like that, like it's a threat. And we got to look at it like, hey, this guy's going to train how many other people to build fence that is going to leave him. Fencers, in our area, they float from company to company a lot, and there's nothing you can do about it. It doesn't matter what you pay them. It doesn't matter if you get them a company vehicle. It's just our trade a little bit. They do bounce from company to company, and eventually they find a home somewhere. But and then that's where they stay for a while. But nonetheless, it's a lot of bouncing in the beginning until they realize that, hey, it's the same at all of us. All the companies are the same. You're gonna go out and dig holes and build some fence. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it's like at the office.
No, and you should have such a culture and such a family and a team that once they go out for a little while and they realize what it's like on the other side, they come back.
Yep.
That's pretty common here. Is now there's a limit to how many times you get to leave and come back, right? Like we've learned that lesson.
Yep.
But that's pretty common. Is they'll leave and they see the grass is greener on the other side. All right. Well, as long as you give notice and you leave properly, then you're welcome back. Yeah. Typically the first time.
Yeah.
And then they come back and say, you know what? It's not really what we thought it was over there. Like it's whatever the reason, right? So
it's the same. We have one or two times you get to do that and come back. After about the second or third time, we're just like going, man, look, I wish you just would have gave us notice, or I wish even with the notice, it's been the second or third time. Second, somebody offers you 50 cents more an hour. It feels like you're just going to leave when, and then, oh yeah, but they only had work for 3 months, but we pay you all year. So I don't want to hear it. It starts to become a pattern. Yeah. So you get mad with your helper or somebody in the truck, but I think that's what we push for, is that a little bit more community, and that little bit more push to have people feel comfortable when they go to events and go to places. And I didn't, even myself, and I'm not a huge company, but Las Vegas Fence isn't the smallest company in the world either. So when it comes to that scale, so there shouldn't be any place where we would go where we would feel at any kind of expo or any kind of event where we would feel out of place as well. So the fact that we felt out of place at a size our size means how awkward must it be for somebody that just walked in, that's just him and his brother, you know what I mean, coming in, and how you feel like nobody wanted to talk to you kind of thing because you weren't big enough. And even like you were saying with the workers' comp and some of this stuff, if we don't help find the providers that are going to help the guys with, and some of these providers don't want the guy that has 2 or 3 employees, they want 5, 10 employees. And as soon as you tell them, hey, I only do, $300,000 a year and I have just 1 employee, they're like, well, I don't think you're a fit for our company. You hear that a couple times and you feel like your company's not as valid as the other one. And it's just not true. Whether you're in business 1 day or 10 years, you're just as valid of a company. And in this industry, you could start off with 1 guy and 1 truck in January. By July, you have 3 trucks. By December, you could have 4 or 5 trucks. That's how quick you grow in this company. So these are not people to be underestimated.
Well, and especially in the last couple of years.
Right.
Where, so we were talking about seasonality before we came on the show, about how, so in our market, pre-pandemic, it was seasonal, meaning that it went from typically St. Patty's Day to Thanksgiving, thereabouts, and plus or minus a week maybe. Then it wound down through the winter, and then it picked back up around St. Pat Day. So, but then you get other guys that are busy year round. They're slammed. But for us in the pandemic, we never slowed down. From April, May 2020. Now there was a bump in the road where no one knew what was going on, and everyone had to shut down for a few weeks. But then once we got back open, it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. It was just
beautiful. It was beautiful.
You didn't really have to market. It just came in. And I think what we're finding in the industry, and what a lot of people are finding in other industry, is there are a lot of contractors that started in there that have only known good times. So those are the guys and gals that we need to find quickly. What do you need help with? How can we help? Like, how can we be of assistance before the savings winds down, before fall hits and the numbers start going down, and then you're in a real pinch because all you've known is good times. But I think those are the people that find themselves, amongst others, at home with FWA. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I agree. And it's amazing how small of a reach all of us associations. I don't know if you saw, I put something out once where if you were to combine all of us, you'd FWA, AFA, NAFCA, anybody in the 3, and I think those would be the 3 main fence ones that I can think of off the top of my head. But even just combine those 3, we don't even equal 2%, probably 2.5% if we're lucky, of the fence companies in the U.S. are even associated with us. That's insane, isn't it? That means 98% of fence companies are over 57,000. I think last time we were looking at 57,000 fence companies, and maybe 1,500 of them, 2,000 of them are even dealing with any kind of association at all, or even know we exist. So that means there's 98%. So I mean, there's room not only for us, there's room for another 10 more associations. And I wish we had them. You know what I mean? And we can't be threatened by each other either, because we're not reaching them, and we're not reaching that 98% of the room. There's plenty of room for everybody to come in and reach a different part of the industry, people that want to connect on a different level. So yeah, I think FWA is growing, not just from that 1 or 2% that was already engaging in associations, but we're taking people that have never engaged in an association, like you said, the ones that are just starting out as well. And we're gonna be with them up until they start off as a free member, and we got people upgrading to a business member or even a sponsor member, from a free membership on their own. It's not us, and are they getting much more to be a business member? No, not that much more, other than getting added to some directories and they get to put down that they're a business member and things like that. And they're doing it just to support us, because we're not telling them you have to do this in order to get some of these resources. And we're going to keep it that way. We're going to keep developing. Our main focus on the benefits is the benefits for people that aren't paying anything at all. Could we use the help? Sure. I mean, is it do I smile a little bit every time somebody upgrades from a free to a business? Because make no mistake, it's a lot of time and money that goes into to creating that. I think in the long run, it's going to support itself just from the people that are going to remember, hey, in the beginning, they didn't ask anything from us. They just wanted us to become a company and hire people. And they gave us forums. They gave us expo passes and some free training, some free information, all this information that we're, that's going to get thrown down on them, whether they like it or not. The government's that's going to come down crashing on them for these standards. We're trying to help, and I'm getting a lot of pushback on that, by the way, because a lot of people don't like this free information going out.
Sure.
But I'm trying to get the free standards and all this stuff correct and out there. And most of these standards that we're supposed to be following aren't free. So it's public safety for whoever can afford it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's in everyone's best interest that as many people have this, the safety regulations in their hands as possible.
Yeah.
And have access to standards.
Yep.
Right. There's some discussion about, new contractors don't have the funds to purchase some standards books that are out there.
Yep.
Right. Because they can be spendy. They can, especially when they change often. Right. Yep. And they're updated consistently. It's like, I'm spending how much a year to have these standards publications? Like,
yep.
Why? If has the standard changed that much from last year? And well, no, but so I think I think you found the right place in trying to make this information available to as many people as possible. Again, as an industry, I think we're better for it. That everyone be able to safely and effectively perform their trade, whether it's fencing, whether it's gate automation, regardless of what it is.
Yep. And my approach on it's a little different. I'm not going to try to shove gate safety and fence safety and other safety standards out, and not going to try to shove it down people's throat with fear. I'm not going to show you a bunch of gory pictures of what can happen if you do it wrong. I want to teach people how easy it is to do it right. And not make people afraid to get into our industry, because I mean, it's a great industry, the gates and the fence and access controls, all this stuff. And it's really not hard. It's not hard. There's 4 or 5 simple things to make a gate safe. You know what I mean? The screen, the pinch zones, the so on, the, fall protection. Let's just show people how easy it is to build it's just as easy to build a safe gate as it is to build one that's not. It's not much more work. So my approach is a little different. Is, hey, you know what? Come on in. We're going to show you. We're not going to show you what happens if you don't do it right. We're going to show you that briefly, but we're going to show you this is what you need to do it right. And I think that's what people like us, we, in the fence industry, we engage with more of an encouragement than telling us what we're doing wrong nonstop. And code enforcement coming out on us, we don't take that stuff well in the fence industry. We've never been regulated to that point. Last thing we're going to take good is some 18-year-old walking out there that's never built fence telling you you're doing it wrong. I mean, you're going to get fencers. We would rather shut our companies down and work illegally than be over-regulated by people that have never built fence. That's the average fencer.
Sure. I think that's probably accurate. So we were talking a little bit before about permits, and I don't want to go all the way down this road because this will turn into a 2 or 3 hour conversation, but we're already seeing that in fencing, right? Yep. So you were sharing your stories about how, several weeks to get a permit to install a residential fence in someone's backyard. That's not good for business.
Right
now, there's a line here, right? So we also don't want, there's also a safety aspect too. We want to make sure people are installing safe fence. I think that's where it starts, and then it grows out of control.
Right.
It's right. And I was saying, so there's a town south of here that we love working in. They're one of the more affluent areas in our community, but they require a fence permit that's $130. And to close out the permit properly, once the fence is installed, an inspector comes out and looks at it and basically making sure that it's no more than 6 feet tall and it doesn't pass the front corners of the house.
Yep.
Why I have to be there for that, or one of our team members has to be there for that, no idea. Yep. And what's the point? And it's, like I said, $132 is the cost of this thing, plus my time or a team member's time. Usually I'm the one that goes because I don't really want someone to, if the inspector's got a question, I want to be the one to answer it, you know?
Yep.
But what's the point? And there's a slippery slope from that. Right. And anyway, so I think we're starting to see what regulation looks like. And I don't know that it's good for anybody,
right?
Over regulation. Right. I understand we do want to keep things safe. I mean, God forbid, we don't want anyone hurt by what we're doing. but you can go too far either way, I think.
Yep.
Is the point. We need to find a safe spot for everyone, or a comfortable spot for everybody.
Yeah. And I think have you ever had somebody call you and say, I want to put a gate around my yard, or I want to put a fence on the side of my house, and they don't know the difference between gate and fence?
Oh, sure.
And that's just it's a common thing to have somebody call you and say, I want a gate when they think in fence, or they say the word fence when they want gate.
Yeah.
And those consumers are the exact same people that have the jobs in the building department and have the jobs as the code enforcement. So we tend to put them on a different level, like the building department and them, but they're not. They're the same. In fact, you could have a code enforcement or somebody from the building department call you and say the same thing. I want to put a gate around my yard. and then you have to correct them. Are you looking for a gate or a fence? Because we know the difference. So the hardest part I have with following stuff is you can go in there and create a gate regulation, and the building department code enforcement won't know how to separate that from a fence regulation.
Sure.
So and when we say, okay, we're going to create gate regulations and gate codes there, and we understand the difference between a gate company and a fence company. The consumer doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the difference between an automated gate and a personal walkthrough gate.
Right. So how do you have a code enforcement or a building department go out and enforce regulations on the gate industry without it affecting the fence industry? So and so we have to be careful in how we do that. And International Building Code, by the way, is it's wrote right into the International Building Code. IBC is any fence up to 7 foot tall is exempt from permitting. So that's in the International Building Code. So then it goes down to the local building departments, and then they can go more strict in the International Building Code, but they can't go more lenient. So they can't say it's anything up to 8 foot doesn't require a permit, but they can say anything up to 4 foot requires a permit. Yeah. So they can say things like that. So then we go and we push. So we have an International Building Code that says fences up to 7 foot are exempt from permitting. Why are we going to the local building department saying that we want fences up to 6 foot that require a permit?
Right. Most of the ones around us are any fence.
Right.
And if you want to install a fence, it needs a permit. Some of them are no cost. So Springfield proper, no cost. It's an electronic filing. Because they want to make sure it's not over 7 foot. So theirs is up to 7 foot, no cost permit. Now, over 7 foot, you got to get engineer stamp drawings. You got to do this, that, and the other. But, I'll give a good example. So you can't have 6 foot fence in the front yard. It has to be 4 foot, 50% open from the front corners of the dwelling. So we had a permit get rejected twice because we did not go past the front corners, but the entire fence was 6 foot tall. And whoever was reviewing it said, no, the front facing fence has to be 4 foot tall and 50% open.
Yep.
No, it doesn't. We're not passing the front corner. It can be 6 foot tall because we're going halfway up the house. We're not even close to the front corner. No. Fences that facing the front have to be 4 foot. And it took us probably a week of going around and around trying to find someone there that understood. Yep. That's for fences in the front yard, not front-facing fences. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about is a misunderstanding of what the organization's rules are, or the permitting process or whatever, can really, really screw things up.
Yeah, and we come from a highly regulated area. We got 5 different building departments in Las Vegas. And you know how small Las Vegas is? We have 5 building departments that all have different regulations. And it took me years of, I'm a member of the Southern Nevada International Code Council that I joined just so I could go to the Southern Nevada building official meetings. And all these meetings were happening in, where all the building officials met. This is how these laws and regulations get created, is associations like myself and other ones. We go and we meet with these people and we get them to pass laws and regulations. But this meeting, I found out about it just kind of happenstance across it. And you got to go through a bar and you go up some stairs, and they're all meeting they have all these building officials have all these building departments, but they meet in the upstairs of a bar. And this is where in a room, and this is where the meetings were. They all got together, not at one of the facilities. So this is how I lobbied and went to the luncheons and got them to follow now the International Building Code, because they created admin codes to override that, which required permits. And then at one point, for a fence in your front yard, we were having to dig holes along a sidewalk, and you'd have to wait. Now, what would have been like a 6-hour project is now half a day to a day to dig the holes and wait. And then you got to leave. You got to cover the holes. Then you got to find something to cover the holes. And you got to wait for an inspector the next day from 6 to 12 if he shows. And if you're not there, he'll say, I couldn't inspect the holes because they were covered, but you can't leave them open either. So now a job that should have been $2,000 is, say, $6,000. Sure. And then all this was supposedly to get rid of the unlicensed people. But now the unlicensed people are going to be out there tomorrow, and they're going to do it for $2,000. We got to charge $5,000. I mean,
yeah, and I think the point I made before we got on here was you still have, your point is you still have unlicensed contractors, which we see that still in electric contractors and plumbers and that sort of thing that have been regulated forever, and they still have unpermitted, unqualified contractors out there doing the work. So if we think that we can flip a light switch and all of a sudden everyone's certified and everyone, whatever the term for it is, it is pretty unlikely.
Yeah. And now it takes 2 to 6 weeks to get the permit, and somebody else can be out there tomorrow. And they end up not calling in the underground. They end up hitting, and this is how we create hazards, which had we been doing it, we would have called in the underground, the 811. We would have made sure all the utilities and maybe not hit a fiber optics line or a gas line, or, I mean, it's just it's a safer way to have people do it right. But anyway, that's kind of been my approach on it, is we got to be tactful. And we got to be careful. We got to be mindful of the small businesses and small fence companies and stuff as well. And if we start going around and regulating too heavily people that aren't prepared for it, and and if you come from an area where you haven't heard of any of these regulations, we don't send them the how they should be building it first, and train them on how to do this first before we do that. You could take a guy out of business. You could take a guy that's been in business for 6 months that leveraged everything he has, his money, his savings, his home, everything he put to start a fence company, to buy these trucks and to hire people and to get licensed to rent this building, to buy these tools. And you want to see a guy's life ruined, or a gal, whoever started a fence company, take it away after 6 months. I mean, he could lose his home, his kids, his wife. I mean, it's amazing what happens when your company crumbles. So it's a big responsibility that we have. Anybody that's going to go talk to the government on behalf of our industry, it's a huge responsibility, and it shouldn't be taken lightly.
Agreed. I think that's a great point. I want to talk. I'm watching the clock here a little bit. I want to be sure we talk about the Fence Show.
Okay.
Coming up in August. What, as a first annual, obviously I have no idea what to expect. So
me either.
Walking through the door. Okay, that's fair.
No, it's going to be fun, man. It is. Every day is something new, even for us at our end, on people reaching out and the events, and things are kind of tweaking, and new exhibitors, people that I never would have thought would have done, exhibits and things like that. And Lowe's is even talking about being there and things like this. We're talking about having something on a different scale than we've seen. I think, maybe not on the actual exhibitor number base, but just a whole different set of exhibitors. And then our events, it's going to be a show. I mean, we're going to have training throughout this thing, a lot of interaction. When you are there, it's going to be some different kind of events and social gatherings. And we're going to take, like I said, going back to people feeling a little awkward and uncomfortable coming to a show, maybe for the first time, or going in as a smaller outfit. We're going to try to find out when, if you don't get thanked by 4 or 5 people for even coming there, then we failed. And we're going to be asking you, hey, why are you here? And I encourage other people that are doing shows to do the same thing, because that's what I would like. Hey, what are you here for? Are you here for some training? Are you what size company are you? Is there something we can help you with? Are you buying from some local distributors? Would you like to meet a distributor? I mean, when you first started, how would you have loved to have been walked over to one of the big distributors and said, "Hey, Bill, this is Rick. He's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Make that handshake and that introduction. He's got 4 or 5 trucks. He's got 5 guys. He's buying from this place and this place. He'd love to talk to you about something, and make that soft introduction, or even help set up some lunch meetings. And we're telling our exhibitors, hey, this isn't going to be where you already know who you're taking to lunch and who you're taking to dinner, and who, and we could write down on our hand how it felt for us on who's going to lunch with who and who's having drinks with who. We're going to try to take people out of their comfort zone, and even set some of these meetings up and say, hey, you're taking Kenny and Mark to lunch today. Nice. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. That kind of stuff.
I like it.
Yeah, and training is going to be different. We're going to have your basic, and we're going to take people and show them how to install a gate operator. Not gate design. It's not going to be a big gate design school. It's just going to be the basics to show them how simple it is, really, to 4 or 5 steps to install a gate operator. Everything from bolt it down to the chain, and why the chain should be level. What happens? You know what I mean? Little things, and hooking up the 2 photo eyes and things like that, and showing them this is how you adjust the basic, whether it's a limit switch or in the board. Multimeter testing. I can't tell you. I could use a refresher on how to use a multimeter. I mean, sure. Other than going to AC and DC, the average person can't even tell you, how to check the continuity of something, things like this, right. or the ohms, or even, if we get a mega meter or something, showing them how to test a loop in the ground if the loop is faulty, using the right meter. So we're going to be doing that kind of stuff, and then just going through just a nonstop little educational stuff throughout the thing where you can pop in. The gate safety stuff, we're building these displays where you're going to see what happens if one's not built right and one is built right, whether it has screen or it doesn't, and it'll have some actual interactive displays that are full size, basically 8 feet long. And we're going to do, rather than us just sit there and tell you and show you a picture of what happens if you don't build it right, you know what I mean, and bringing you down, we're going to say, this is how easy it is, but actual with full displays with our kind of our gate safety summit thing we're doing.
Nice.
I think you're gonna find it's going to be really, really interactive. You know, if you didn't get a picture with Elvis or one of the showgirls or something, I want to make an experience where you're just like going, man, that was a blast. You know,
absolutely.
And we're trying to put together a roast. We're not sure if that's going to work, who we're going to roast, but
okay, that could be good. So where's it being held at?
South Point in Las Vegas, Nevada, August 23rd to the 25th. So the details and a new site's actually going up here shortly for the virtual side of it. So if you go to fenceshow.com, that's the best place. You just go right there and you can either book a room. Rooms right now are $65.
And that's what I was going to hit on. That rooms are incredibly affordable.
Yeah. And we've almost ate up the first room block. So I don't know how the next room block is going to go. Whether it's going to be the $65 or not, but I'm going to try to stick it with that. But so you can't go wrong with $65. I mean, even the property, it's for us. It almost looks like this property is built for us fencers. I mean, I think I went there and I picked up Susan when she was in town. She stayed over there when she was over here. We're doing some recon stuff for the show, and I got like 2 vodka tonics for $12. And it's like, which is, if you come to Vegas, we're trying to do stuff where, go down and get a beer for $5, not $25. And
absolutely.
Nothing will ruin one of these trips for someone quicker than, you go and get 3 beers and it's $75. So,
right. Or a $300-$400 night room or
Yeah. So, and the parking's going to be easy for, in and out. We're not, it's free parking, things like that. So we're trying to make it easy for all of us to get in and out, but we're also going to have a shuttle bus that runs because we did come, people are coming to Vegas. They want to see Vegas. So we'll have a shuttle bus. We'll go to the Bellagio fountains, the Mirage volcano, the Link, and take you down to Fremont Street. And those are all things you can do that don't cost anything, but then you can also jump off and go, or if you want to just take an Uber or something, you could go to one of the hotels. Maybe you do want to get cigars, or, it's everything you want here. And
everything's fairly close too.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, that's, I don't know what, my first time to Vegas, I don't know what I had expected. But we were staying, we were being the tourists and we stayed on the Strip, and but we wanted to go down to Fremont Street because I was like, and anyone that hasn't been should absolutely go. Like we went to like the Golden Nugget, we did like all the stuff, but it was a cheap. Well, this was pre-Uber, so I'm going to show my age here, I guess, but it was a pretty cheap taxi ride, just right down to downtown. And anyway, so I was surprised by how close it was. Now you can jump on an Uber at the north side and be on the south side in 15-20 minutes or something. So everything's pretty close, it seems like.
And that's actually Las Vegas, believe it or not. That's actually Las Vegas. All the hotels, everything you see, all the other ones, all Clark County. It's not even Las Vegas. So it's kind of, yeah, it's funny. So when someone says, we're pulling a permit for Las Vegas, it has to be up in that area over there. That's just, Las Vegas is actually a pretty small area. It's
interesting.
It's all Clark County that you see all the big resorts and stuff. So
here,
the Clark County commissioners have all the power. See, Las Vegas, the mayor and stuff, they do have some power, but not as much as the commissioners, which is weird, isn't it?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another little complication that goes on around there.
Yeah, until you get to the stratosphere. Then it turns into Las Vegas.
Okay. Got it. So I'm excited. So Braden and I are coming. We're going to be filming, just try to document everything that's going on because I'm excited to go. I remember, my first time to Vegas, I walked around with eyes like this big, just like checking everything out. And it's a good area. It really is. Now it's going to be warm. Vegas in August will be a little warm.
Yep.
So I'm prepared for that.
Yeah. It's gonna and there's a pool there, but it's gonna cool down a little bit at night, but it's definitely gonna be warm, especially if you're coming from an area where it never gets above 60, 70. But you're gonna feel it. But that's also gonna be kind of nice. You're not gonna have to bring a ton of clothes, and I don't think you're gonna get stuck in a rainstorm by any chance. We only get like 20 days of rain, so it would have to be some really bad luck. But the rain might feel good, I guess. But I think and that's right when it starts to cool down. So September is when it starts to cool. So it should get pretty reasonable at night. during the day, you're supposed to be at the show anyway, right? Inside,
right?
They see everything's air conditioned.
Yep. You'll be inside irregardless. So
yeah.
Very good. So we can, and I keep seeing you post. So it sounds like booths are filling up fairly quickly because I keep seeing videos where he's like, "Hey, we got another block of vendors already done."
Yep. Yeah. I'm trying to get, we were working on, we got some health insurance stuff we're working on for the member benefits side. Even though we're doing this show, we're not letting it take over what our core reason for starting the association was. So we have to, we stay focused on the member benefit side of it as well. So we got some meetings with some health insurance providers coming up next week. I think Tuesday is the next one we're preparing for. So I kind of dropped the ball on making the announcements on a few of the exhibitors that signed up. So you'll see me plugging a bunch real quick. I'm trying to get caught up. So it's just like every day we're announcing the new one, and stuff, because they're signing up almost daily at this point for exhibitors. So you'll see a bunch that just came out. That was my bad.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I love it. What do you have a feel for where you're at exhibitor wise?
I think last time I checked, there's probably a good 75 booths reserved.
Nice.
And it's of course still 4 months out. You're going to get a lot of people were standoffish in the beginning because it is the first one and we don't have the exact numbers on the foot traffic. But I think that the traffic's going to be good. I mean, it's the feedback we're getting is everybody's excited to see what's going to happen.
Right. Well, and it's in an area that's easily accessible to everybody. Like you can, no matter where you're at, you can generally find pretty cheap flights in and out. Right. Yeah. And the rooms are obviously very affordable. When I logged on to get our rooms, I was like, it's how much? Like, okay. All right. 70 a night. Good deal.
Yeah. Suites are like 150 if you wanted one of the suites or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. When we go to other places, typically we'll get an Airbnb because the rooms are $500, $600, $700 a night. Yep. And I'm like, well, I've got a team coming, so we're not doing that times 5. We can get a house for less than that. But when I saw Saturday, I was like, we are staying there. We are absolutely doing that, staying on site. So you can typically find inexpensive flights in and out, and you can find the rooms are definitely reasonable. And it sounds like the costs on site aren't so bad. Like you said, $12 for 2 drinks. That's not you would expect. I think we pay more depending on where we're at here in Springfield. I think we pay more for drinks. So
So and there's tons of bars. There's the casino too. I mean, it's a big casino, and who knows, there might even be some rodeo event going on at the time. They do a lot at the. I don't know what's happening, but I know I tried to get some more space in the arena, and it was full. So I don't know what they're doing in there. I haven't heard it yet. So there might be something going on in the arena. So it's I think it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be all of us getting together in a reasonable place. I mean, and I'm glad you're staying on property. I'll be staying. I live 3 blocks from there, and I'm staying on property just because I don't want to have to leave and stuff. So I think it'll be a whole hotel full of fencers. I don't know if they're ready.
Next year they might put some regulations in place or some rules.
This is where they do a lot of the rodeos, so I think they can handle us.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, but we're excited though, so it's going to be fun, and I'm glad you guys are coming up. And I know I reached out to all you guys and said, hey, I think you're even going to have some booth space there, so we're going to be. You guys, I know I've been reaching out. You guys are kind of saying, yeah, we'll interview some people, man. We're going to be sending people your way because I want to get some of these new fencers even, talking to guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to take all of us to plug these guys and say, hey, this guy just opened up in Wichita, Kansas.
Right.
And it's a big deal.
Love this idea of interviewing new contractors. We did these for a while, and I'd like to get back into it, frankly, because so what I was thinking is, wouldn't it be so cool if I had a video of my granddad and his brother-in-law sitting down going, we're trying this fencing thing. Yeah. We'll see if it works. I don't know, and just cutting up about it and talking about the truck that they had. So that's their fence truck now. And they hand painted Ozark fence on the side of it. And it would be really neat for me to see that and to show my kids that sort of thing. So that's kind of how I approach this is like, we need to document these stories and put them out there for everyone to see. Once you put them on YouTube, they'll be available forever and ever to everyone. Yeah. We had talked about that. I said, I love the idea.
Yeah. Put it on their website. It'll be on the homepage of every one of their websites. Give them something else to do on there. It validates them. And the more we can do, even with the membership cards and And, if we can try to help get them even show any experience in fencing that they can use when they're out, give them an advantage when they're out there bidding against somebody. That's what people need. We don't need the other stuff. We need them to teach them how, when they're out there, to make themselves look better to the customer, and little things like that. Give them a badge they can wear, and show, and when they go to the website, show that you've been interviewed by the fence expert, and things like this. It just kind of puts you on a different level. So yeah, so it'll be fun. So I'm excited all you guys are coming, and I know you guys are part of our media team that already that are helping develop some of how we're setting up the stage and stuff. But the panel is going to be fun. We're going to hopefully get some people to come up and bring some new product designs up to you guys to sit up there and tell them what you like and don't like about it.
Okay. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah. So it'll be exciting.
Very good.
I appreciate you having me on. I know I rambled on quite a bit.
No. I love it. I love it. And so we talked about the show. We talked a little bit about the member benefits. What else is going on at the FWA?
Right now we're just pushing really hard the membership cards are going out. You'll be getting one pretty soon.
I got an email confirming my address. Yep.
Oh, absolutely. Did you? Oh, good. Yeah. So she's reaching out to everybody, a couple of them in the office, to make sure, because in the beginning, I think there was a slot for free members couldn't put in their address or something, and I didn't realize it. So it wasn't being saved as their shipping address. So since then we've opened up that area. So now we're telling everybody, go back in and put your shipping address in so we can get the membership cards out, and it'll have a QR code on the back. And we're not telling everybody what's going to be on that QR code yet.
Okay.
So you got to get your card,
scan it and find out.
Scan the back of the QR code, and that's where we're going to constantly be updating the new member benefits. Like right now, we signed, and one of the first ones for associations to do something like this, there's only 2 or 3, I think, in the country, is the member benefits with Lowe's, where you're going to be able to sign up for your Lowe's account, and you'll link to ours, which is a master agreement that I've signed with Lowe's, which took a while back and forth. And then hopefully we'll get Home Depot and get some other suppliers as well. And then we're going to be talking to all of them. Like, we can get anybody involved: merchants, masters, BFC, any supplier, SAS. We're going to reach out to everybody and say, what kind of discounts can you offer? What kind of benefits can you offer for our members? Real stuff you can use. Boot Barn has already agreed. I'm just finalizing some contracts with them. You're going to be able to go into any Boot Barn and show your membership card and get a discount. Nice. And around the country, all the stuff, the real stuff that we can use every day, and as fencers. So it'll give you a benefit into carrying the card, and it's free to get anyway. So it's like to not get one just to see, right? And then we're going to be updating it every time you scan it. It'll tell you what benefits are in your area, or things like that. So in the beginning, and that'll grow. I mean, we're doing this with limited resources.
Sure.
So bear with us, on that part of it. But you'll see some stuff. So membership cards is going out. And then also we're trying to send more t-shirts out, stuff like that for the show, and to get people excited. And then you're going to get a lot of, if you make sure your information is correct at the FWA, it's, on your free membership side or the paid ones. That way we can send you the updates on the show information that's coming out, because it's developing every day, the events and things like that. And hopefully we can get some of you to start getting signed up for some of the events in advance, because that tells us too who's going to be doing some of these foodie tours we're doing. Sure. Even there's a couple of helicopter things going on, because not everybody just wants to sit at the bar and drink $6 vodka tonics with me. But I wish they would.
Teach their own.
Some people want to go see the Strip, right? So different events and shows and things like that. So we can help arrange some of that when you're here. But other than that, FWA is just chugging along, man. I mean, I think honestly we'll have the largest member base probably by the time the show happens. FWA will have the largest member base of any association in the country. So we're excited about that.
Very good. Hey, I've got a question. We are close to wrapping this up, but I think we covered this early maybe, but it'd be good to put a succinct point on it. So Matt Schaefer asked, do we have time to ask Brian? We do. So Brian, what was your motivating factor to starting FWA? I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, but to put a point on it, like what's your drive behind FWA?
Well, I mean, it started off with just, I felt that the fence companies themselves weren't being represented properly. I think that it lost its direction over the years, and on the way things were going. And I'm not big on the regulations and I don't think we were prepared or ready yet for the building departments to come down on us as hard as some people want us to. So, and I wanted people to feel more included. I felt like what really kind of started it was even at my company, we had a shortage of labor. And I'm looking at it going, why? Why do we have a shortage of labor? What's going on? It's a great industry. It's an industry where you don't have to go to college for 8 years, and you can actually build a company and make a good living and support your family and build a company and retire off of it. Why are we having such a hard time keeping people in it? I know it's partially because times have changed a little bit. It's
Sure.
We're not training people properly, and we don't have the stuff in the school that's teaching people that, hey, not everybody can get into playing video games and doing software design. But I think that the basics behind it was I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel like I belonged. Even when I went to the other shows and things like that, I didn't feel 100% like I felt as welcome as people should. And I said, you know what, we should be able to do better as an industry, and we should be able to make people want to stay in it. And I struggled as I was starting my company with where were these resources, and they just weren't available to me. They just weren't. I mean, I had to learn everything through trial and error. I made every mistake you can on every one of my conditions on my contract is because I screwed up. And it wasn't because someone told me I should put that in my contract. It was me that didn't write down my payment terms properly. It was me that didn't write down the conditions of what happens if I hit a sprinkler line, what happens if there's a delay in getting the materials, what happens, you know what I mean? Things like that I learned through, thousands of dollars it cost me to learn these mistakes. If I didn't call in the 811, I mean, things like that. So I think that I wanted to feel something a little bit more connected, and nobody wants to go and just pay to join an association and not understand even what they're getting. So I said, well, you know what, we should have people join just to see if it's going to fit them and see if something's going to benefit them, and then hopefully, in time upgrade if they can, as they grow their companies. So I think that but partly my main motivation is just everybody. It's the comments and it's not very often do I get anything negative, and if it is, it's because they don't understand what we're doing. But for the most part, it's just nothing but positive feedback. So every time I feel drained and I'm just like, oh man, it's 10 o'clock at night, man, I just want to watch some TV. And all of a sudden a message pops up and I'm, man, I love what you're doing. Thanks so much. I'm so excited. And I'm just like, well, man, boom, I wake up. Okay, man, I got to get back on this. So it's everybody else that motivates me, not me, because I'm tired sometimes, but it is a lot of time though. it's
absolutely. Well, and resources.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's to Matt's point. It says, this man's devoted a lot for this, unfathomable amount of money and effort. I mean, there's resources come in a variety of flavors, and it seems like you've invested quite a lot in this mission you've got.
Yeah, a lot of money has gone out too. So when I've self-funded this entire thing, so and like I said, but I believe in time, it's going to fund itself. It's gonna, people will see a value in it, and hopefully, people will upgrade from the free one to a business member. And then we've got people signing up for sponsor memberships because the Fence Magazine is us and stuff as well. And some of the other, because we do have such a strong social media presence, we can have someone sign up as a sponsor member and we can do some shouts out for them and stuff. So, and I know sometimes people get annoyed by those shouts out, but believe it or not, that membership that somebody's paying $5.99 a year for to be a sponsor member, it's a big deal for us. You get, that money's going to support these websites and all these, all the back end of these things. And these platforms, probably the platform you're using to stream this video on, it's costing you hundreds of dollars a month. It's just everything's hundreds of dollars a month for this and this and this. So so the motivation's everybody else, man. It's not me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and talking about sponsors, when I saw sponsorships came up, I was like, this is something I'd like to support it. I'd like to see where it goes, and I'd like to see the mission move forward. So it made sense for Ozark Wireworks to step up and say, we'd like to support an industry association that we can be involved with pretty easily. For us, for a new manufacturer, it was pretty approachable, to partner and become a sponsor.
Yeah, we were excited. Yeah, we were excited to have you gone when you came on too. And I think we have like 11 or 13 sponsors, sponsor members. So, and we had to control what, these groups that we have, obviously with 10, 15,000 people in them, we have to decline probably 50 people a day, messages coming through or people wanting to post because it's just ad after ad after ad.
Yeah.
So it's, and nobody wants to see that. So it did help us kind of limit who we can let through.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah, so it was nice, but yeah, no, Matt, thank you for asking. It's been fun though. It's been fun too.
Well, I'm excited to see where it goes. I think everyone is. That's why I think alternates are a good idea. Just that way, different strokes for different folks. People that may not feel comfortable in other groups need to find a home, right? Well, your point, 98% of the fence contractors out there don't have a home anyway in an association as it stands right now. So there's something going on that they don't want to be a part of, or they don't feel comfortable being a part of. So I think that's where I see, when I see you posting, when I see what you're talking about, it seems like that's who you're trying to talk to, is folks that, not that folks that were involved with someone else that you're trying to pull from that. It's, I want to reach the people that haven't been reached yet. I'm not trying to take from others. I'm trying to go find new and bring them into an industry association, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wouldn't dare pretend to even say I'm representing the fence industry with 1%, 2% of the industry supporting our association. I mean, it's just that's irresponsible.
Sure.
If 98% of the people aren't even involved in it, it's I either have to keep my opinions to myself when it comes to talking to the government and things like that, because it's irresponsible of me to pretend that I'm going to represent 98% of the people have never told us what they want.
Sure.
That's fair. So I think we need to really do a better job reaching out and getting 25-30% of the industry, whatever we can get, connected to the associations to a point where we can say, hey guys, are we happy with how it is, or should we, as a team collectively go in and make a change?
Absolutely. Listen to the greater voice.
Yeah. And do what they're the ones paying for these associations. Let's face it. I mean, at some point, it's going to come down to all of you guys that are paying the association, and we should be, put it out for vote with you guys a little bit and say, hey, should we go and talk to, state of Arkansas about this? You guys are having problems. If a bunch of people said no, you're like, okay.
Yeah. The voice is spoken.
Good. Because that was gonna be a lot of work anyway.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Brian, for the folks out there, the one or two of them that may not know about FWA, where can they learn more?
You can go to joinfwa.com, and that'll take you straight to the join page. And of course, you can click home from there, or you can go to fenceworkers.org. But I think people had a harder time going to fenceworkers.org than they'd go to joinfwa.com.
Sure. Pretty straightforward.
Or reach out to me. Obviously, if you've seen any of my posts anywhere, click on, Brian T. Frederiksen on there and send me a message, and we'll have someone reach out to you from our office, if not myself. But it's pretty easy, and most of the stuff's pretty transparent, and it's changing. I mean, we're making mistakes. I mean, you're going to find spelling errors and it's a bunch of fencers in here trying to create a professional organization. I mean, you got to keep that in mind. This wasn't developed by 15 attorneys and a bunch of people, in suits that just sit in an office all day. We're out like you guys do. We're out running our, my first part of the day is getting my trucks out, from 7 to 8 and arguing with everybody, and then dealing with customers, and then working on this in between. So you're going to find, we're going to try 10, 15 different things, and then we're going to create a site for something, and then it just, nobody really cared or liked it, so we'll get rid of it and try something new. So bear with us while we develop it, but we're doing our best to develop it around what people want.
Yeah. Well, what I'm excited about is just being involved in it from the early days.
Yeah.
Right? Like kind of getting in on the ground floor and just to be able to say, I was there in the beginning. I watched it grow. I watched it become this thing. So I'm excited to see where it goes, for sure.
I think there's 2 cards that are getting printed a special color, and your card's going to be orange. And
I love it. I
think Sean's is going to be blue, and we're trying to.
Nice. I love it. I love that.
Only membership cards that are going to be a certain color.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time. I know the 2-hour time difference is a bit of a drag, so I do appreciate you coming on and being so giving with your time.
Yeah, of course, man. I appreciate you having me on.
We'll have to do it again.
Yep,
You've got the scheduling link now, so you can schedule. If you got something to talk about, you can jump on the scheduling link and come back on. You're always welcome.
Oh, man, you're going to regret telling me that. I love to talk about fence.
Like, wait a minute. Brian's on like every month for the next 8 months. What is going on here? You're always welcome, Brian. I appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it, man. All right. Have a good one.
All right. Guys, for now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. And I'll see you next time.
See you later.